Okay, seeing we're past the 8:30 hour, the Board of Supervisors of the, what's that?
10 o'clock now.
Or, excuse me, 8:30, well, we're past that too. Past the 10 o'clock hour, the Board of Supervisors now, Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte, the governing body of all their special assessments and taxing districts for which said board so acts, is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at that assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. Supervisor Hemmingson, could you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And are there any new employees to be introduced? Okay. Counselor, any reportable action from closed session?
Nothing to report, though. It is my understanding we will be going back into closed session for a brief period of time. I do not anticipate anything to report.
Okay. Okay, at this point, are there any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members to the agenda at this time? In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors.
Chair, I'd like to pull items 6 and 8 for discussion from consent agenda.
I didn't hear the numbers.
6 and 8. Okay, those items have been pulled for discussion. Any other items? Okay, so at this point, we are going to hear brief reports and announcements from board members related to programs, projects, travels, and committees. Supervisor Gitlin, let's start with you, please.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. Another very busy 2 weeks to report to you. I'm very pleased to give you some exciting news. This morning I was contacted recently by Alex Campbell, General Manager of our Home Depot, who tells me that Home Depot's national headquarters in Atlanta has made a commitment to help our veterans locally in a major way, and it will translate into doing some rehabilitative work at the VFW right across the street here. Home Depot will be donating manpower, materials, and products to our local Post 1381. It's great news. Help is very much needed. There's a lot of deferred maintenance in the kitchen, and I'm very excited to see that Home Depot is stepping up to be a good partner in our community and helping the veterans. Alex may very well be in this meeting shortly, and he'll may very well give us a report during the open microphone. I have a jetty update for everybody. Happy to report I met with Search and Rescue Director Terry McNamara and Engineer Jim Barnes, who was acting in a private capacity. Yesterday we met, and he will sign off on the necessary improvements needed to keep rescuers safe as they perform their perilous duties in rescuing those individuals who have wandered onto the jetty and fallen off into the rocks. So we encountered some delays, but I'm happy to report we will be moving forward with full cooperation and participation of our federal partner. That's the Army Corps of Engineers in San Francisco. Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Jim Barnes, for your tenacity and dedication in protecting our public and providing the best safety interventions possible. Last week I was honored to have a full escort of Trees of Mystery by owners John and Debbie Thompson. I must admit I've been to the museum a number of times, but I've never really been up into the trees, and John took me around for an up-close view. It's really quite exceptional. If you haven't been there recently, I'd encourage you to get down to Trees of Mystery. The business model set example by Trees of Mystery owners is just tops in the state, and John and Debbie really run a beautiful operation. They have a great restaurant across the street, the Trees Cafe, so get on down there in the near future. I promise you'll enjoy it. Also last week the board met in special session to appoint one of its members to the almost completed Camden study regarding Sutter Health's attempt to move its decision-making process, what's called regionalization, down to the Bay Area, and possibly devolving our local hospital status to what is called critical access from its current acute care status. Unfortunately, due to a quorum of only 3 supervisors present, a consensus could not be reached, and the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors will not participate in this study at this time. With or without the board participation, the discussion in future of Sutter Coast Hospital is far from over. Last week I attended a special meeting of the Solid Waste Management Authority. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss the filling of the interim director of the authority. We have nothing to report at this time. Our Republican Central Committee met to make final plans for Saturday, September 14th special dinner welcoming State Party Chair Jim Brolte, State Senator Jim Nielsen, and Assembly Member and candidate for Governor Tim Donnelly will be present. We also finalized arrangements for a wine and cheese event Sunday, September 15th at our home. Participated in our quarterly intergovernment relations meeting where different governances from city, county, Del Norte Schools, Redwood Community College, Del Norte County, etc., keep each other informed. It's a very helpful and productive meeting. It's hosted at the City Wastewater Treatment Conference Room. And for me personally, it allows me to interface with the different governances which operate within our county, and again, very productive, nothing specific to report. On blight, volunteers of our Daily Bread Ministries completed a massive cleanup on a home on Loft Street. I want to say thank you again to the volunteers at the Daily Bread Ministries for taking a bite out of blight. As a result of these efforts, I'm pleased to tell you that Code Enforcement Officer Dave Mason was able to recommend that the case be cleared in abatement court, Judge Cater's abatement docket. No fines, no sanctions for the homeowner, and we're pleased to report that. On a related note, we're just about finished plugging up that gaping hole in the fence on the county-owned 3.5-acre parcel, which is adjacent to Walmart. A segment of fence has been located, and again, from the transfer station, we owe thanks. Someone throwing away something. The keen eyes of staff over there called me and said, we have some fencing. If you want to come by and pick it up, and we did, and it's sitting there, and we'll be moving forward on that. I'm hopeful at our next meeting we'll have a full report to tell you that the 3.5-acre parcel is completely secured and will not be refouled. I read with great interest a Coastal Voice commentary by Kurt Stremberg, who chairs the Citizens Committee, recommending swift action to find an alternative route against the breach, which is called Last Chance Grade. It's already a one-lane road now. As a result of that commentary, the subject discussed in the Advocacy Subcommittee of the Chamber of Commerce recommended to the full Crescent City Del Norte County Chamber of Commerce to write a letter of support to our local transportation commissioner requesting Caltrans review its 2003 study and change course in looking at options to build the road around Last Chance Grade. The Chamber unanimously approved that recommendation, and I'm hopeful that our own Board of Supervisors will do likewise. Enjoyed lunch at the Senior Center, attended a Sea Cruise Car Show meeting and Visitors Bureau meeting last week. Sea Cruise Car Show is scheduled for the weekend of October 10th. A great show and dance is planned. You can pick up tickets at a number of places, including Del Norte Office Supply. And next week commences the Jewish High Holy Day services. This 10-day period of this High Holy Day services starts sunset September 4th with the recognition of Rosh Hashanah, or the Jewish New Year, which will commence the year 5774. The next day, the Jewish community will meet at the B Street Pier in an event called Tashlik, where the sins of the past year are cast into the ocean. Friday, September 13th at sunset starts the most serious day on the Hebrew calendar, which is Yom Kippur, and that is translated into Day of Atonement. This is a very special period where Jews around the world confess to their sins and pay homage to those who have preceded us. It's also the day Jews forgive those who have sinned against them. As a proud member of my faith, this is a day I take very seriously. And on that note, I wish you all a happy Jewish New Year. Chair?
Thank you. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you. Had a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting at Pelican Bay State Prison. The topic of conversation was the hunger strike. We currently as of August 14th. The meeting was on August 14th, so I just have data from that date. 41 local participants in the hunger strike. It's been some 37 days now. No inmate has lost more than 10% of their body weight, so there is some indication that they may be getting food through either the canteen or from other inmates. Statewide, out of 120,000 inmates, there are approximately 200 that are on this hunger strike. As a matter of fact, I got a call from a lady from Oceanside, California, who thought that conditions must be so deplorable in our state prison system to force these inmates to go on a hunger strike. I actually got a message from her and returned her call. I disagreed with her somewhat because I have actually toured Pelican Bay State Prison and recommended that she do the same. She was not interested in doing that, but she was interested in getting some more information. We had a presentation also on the new Stockton facility. This is a 1.2 million square foot facility at a cost of $840 million on 400 acres. It's going to house 722 inmate patients. These are people, most of them are older, bedridden, maybe on dialysis. They're in poor health, and this facility is being built so that they can put all of the prisoners in one facility that need constant care, so they don't have to keep transporting these inmates, patients, to other facilities to have their care done and then back to the prison. So this is a fairly huge facility. I was totally unaware that they were even building it up until the meeting previous to this one, when they had mentioned it and said that they were going to give a presentation on it. Huge facility. Also, the Pelican Bay State Prison got accreditation by the American Correctional Association at a 97 point some rating, which is basically an A+. So they're very high on the list, and there's, I think, 5 other prisons right now waiting for accreditation, and this is going to be a slow process, and eventually all the prisons in California will be accredited by the American Correctional Association. As Supervisor Gitlin mentioned, we had a special meeting to appoint somebody to, I guess, the study meeting from the hospital, Sutter Coast Hospital. We could not come to an agreement on who was to represent us, so nobody will represent us. I had I get quite a few calls from constituents and people out in the out there that want to deal with certain issues, but I had an unusual number relating to 3 issues. One was the solid waste, realignment of last chance grade in the hospital. Had quite a few people that I had talked to, and even got a call from Dr. Duncan, which we had a long conversation, gave me some information that I was unaware of, and we had a fairly long conversation. It was good to hear from him, and I have talked to Linda Horn, I think it is. So I've talked to her some time ago. So it would be nice, maybe we could all get on the same page and work towards resolution of that. Had a meeting at the airport with Jared Huffman, Congressman Huffman's staff, John Driscoll and others, about the airport issues, how things are going, what they can do to help, trying to find out what they can do to help move the process along. We're certainly very hopeful that we get a coastal development permit from the Coastal Commission this month, or this coming month. So hopefully, if that all goes well, we'll be well on our way once we find out what the conditions are that we have to adhere to on that. Yesterday had a LAFCO meeting. Most of the conversation was around Klamath Fire and the grand jury report. It was pretty informative. We're moving, getting the information, and George Williamson, who does just an absolutely outstanding job as our executive director, is looking into that, as well as the Klamath Community Services District. And that was about it for me.
All right, thank you. Supervisor McClure.
Yes, I have had several meetings. I've had several constituent phone calls. Again, I have had a constituent urging that the speed on Pacific Avenue be reconsidered because of the number of children that walk and the number of people that use Pacific Avenue as their connector road to getting downtown or getting to other places within the community. So I will refer that again to community development. I traveled to Santa Cruz for the Coastal Commission meeting and checked the agenda, and the airport is on the agenda. The report's not ready yet, but it is listed on the agenda. Redwood Park Association is in the final planning of agreement with the National Park and Redwood State National Parks in keeping the visitor center open down on 2nd Street, that the RPA is going to step up and make sure that that remains open, because there's about 45,000 people that stop in there every year, and we want to keep those visitors coming. The local Redwood Coast Transit Authority met. There was discussion about additional trips to town from Smith River, and there was a identified need that we need to beef up the understanding of the number of trips per day, because there are already 5 trips coming from Smith River to town to assist people to be able to come to town to shop and get groceries. There was a 5-year plan that was presented that was fairly well rejected, that it needed to be reworked, primarily because funding for transportation issues is usually cited in paragraph and verse in relationship to what that plan says. And so the plan didn't really identify any growth areas or any increased need areas. So we've asked that Mark Wall and Tamara Layton, along with the LAFCO support, go back and work with the consultants to beef that plan up a little bit. I have worked with Jim Barnes on a drainage issue on Lake Earl that he's still waiting for some information back. I want to thank our parks people and maintenance people that the benches along Pebble Beach that people have placed there to honor their loved ones are just being used all the time, and it's kind of exciting to see that people are enjoying the benches, and I'm glad that that project is working well and it's moving forward. I've been in touch with the regional director and now the deputy director for our region in relationship to the national park and their rejection of wanting to complete the hostel analysis and possibly not building a hostel in our Redwood National Park. And I believe that that's because it's part of the national park's plan. We need to press hard and heavy for a hostel. We had a hostel here for 20 years that had 32 beds and served thousands and thousands of people, and we want to keep that kind of service going. At one point there was a suggestion that maybe the hostel could be put in Oric, and I believe that the hostel needs to be put in Del Norte County, because I think that the people that come stay at the hostel, they go shopping, they decide they fall in love with the area, and it's a very important draw for tourists of all ages. I had quite a long conversation with both Emily Rogers and Lisa Raymer. Lisa Raymer is the Chief of Staff for Assemblyman Chesbrough, and Emily was the staffer assigned to attempt to figure out what to do with the 41st Agricultural District. One of the issues was that the district wanted this to be an urgency item. The problem with it being to get an urgency item at this late game in the in the legislative process is that it must get a 2/3 vote. And because it's tied to the potential of offering a local bond, they didn't feel that they were going to get the Republican side of the aisle to agree to it being urgency. So that's a little bit on hold there, but it appears that our group is going to try to reintroduce it in January. There was a brief discussion about the possibility of us actually creating a JPA with the county and the board and possible other entities. State Lands is a little concerned about it being a land swap, so that needs to be further vetted in relationship to it being a lease. The new, the bill that's being introduced, that's being circulated right now, does a little bit on land lease, but not a lot. The Food and Agricultural Commissioner Karen Roth is more than willing to talk with us about the possibility of a JPA. So that's something that I think that we may want to fold into our discussions of what are our issues and what's our possibility. The Democrats are having a free Labor Day picnic this Saturday from 11 to 1 down at the beachfront. And Chris Lehman will be there, and Chris Lehman has thrown his name into the hat for our Senate district as a person who, and he's from Humboldt County, so if people wanted to come and meet him, it would be an opportunity. And I just want everyone collectively throughout our community and the state to think about our firefighters and making sure that they're safe, because California is burning at this point, and we need to know that the job they do is absolutely incredible. That's about it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, just extensive. Just to let you know from the beginning, Supervisor Finnegan's not here. I got a call from him yesterday. He's down in a meeting with the governor today. That's why he's not in attendance today. Attended the special session regarding appointment to Sutter Coast. We did not reach a conclusion at all. It's unfortunate we're not participating in a board in the study, but that's where we're at. Had a conversation with Angie Schwab from Building Healthy's Community regarding the Ray's closure in Smith River and seeing what we can do to get some type of food supply out there, especially for folks that are not mobile and don't have the ability to travel back and forth on a daily basis. And I appreciate Redwood Coast Transit having that. I think the folks out there need to be a little bit more aware of the number of trips coming in, because it has been for a while. It's the most successful route within Redwood Coast Transit. And it comes Smith River, Crest City down to Arcata is one of the routes, but there's a lot of routes during the course of the day, so that may provide a Band-Aid for the time being. Attended a special solid waste meeting. Also attended, and I forget what number it is, but the Smith River Days Festival out there, and there's quite a group out there that puts this thing together. The weather was phenomenal, by the way, but it's been a cool event out in Smith River that they do every summer to recognize the heritage that is in Smith River, because it's an old community out there in terms of how long it's been there. And they've got these old photos there showing a lot of the pioneers that started out in Smith River, and very, very neat event that started really small and has kind of blossomed from them. So I would encourage everyone, if they have a chance going forward next year, to come out there. The only thing negative, I guess, is it conflicted with the Klamath festival, salmon festival that was happening in Klamath. So hopefully dates won't conflict next year, but a very, very good event. Also, I was sad to hear the passing of Floyd Clausen. Floyd Clausen, for those that used to listen to the Warrior games on the radio, he was one of him and Chuck did the color commentary for a long time before Donnie Matt stepped into that role, and we're sorry to see Floyd pass. He'll definitely be missed in the community. Got a phone call from a couple constituents on the speed limits on Kings Valley Road. It's at 50. They're concerned that it should be reduced. More to come on that. Attended agenda review. And also want to thank, on another item, want to thank Dave Mason, Code Enforcement, in terms of moving the truck and trailer that were camped out on the side of the road on 199. So right now, if you drive just before you get to Slant Bridge, there was basically an encampment set up, and that is no longer there, which is a good thing. It is private property there, but there's also a process in terms of if people want to going through planning department and permits is a good way to start. Attended the going away party for Geneva Wiki. She's moving to New Zealand, where her husband's at right now, for the next year and a half, 2 years. So she's been a good part of the community here, and especially involved with the RecWA and that establishment down there, and building healthy communities. So also got on a lighter side, got a chance to tour Crescent Elk a couple weeks ago, and the Mary Peacock students didn't have an opportunity during the year to go to Crescent Elk, for those kids going to 6th grade at Crescent Elk this upcoming year. So I want to thank Principal Hartwick. He kind of led it, and there was about 15 to 16 kids just to get familiar. It's a bigger school. There's more kids now, so we appreciate the outreach during the middle of the summer. So other than that, I will be two things. I know Local Transportation Commission has had, we've already had a meeting with the new Deputy Director of Caltrans in regards to last chance grades specifically, and Supervisor Hamilton and I, who are the two appointments on local transportation, have gotten a tour by Green Diamond of possible back roads. It is a priority for the Local Transportation Commission, and it's been elevated up. We appreciate it is a very deep concern for us, because it will have a substantial impact to this community well, it's already failing. It's not a question of whether it fails or not, but if we can't get past that and it shuts down, then it's not going to affect this community in a good way. So it is a priority for the Local Transportation Commission. Next week will be myself, and obviously Supervisor Finnegan will be attending the CSAC quarterly meeting down in Sacramento. And other than that is it for board reports. Then we're going to hear a brief report from the County Administrative Officer.
Well, since the last meeting, a lot of our time in administration, and my time in particular, has been related to personnel negotiations, as well as our development of the budget. I've reported out in virtually every meeting that we'll be having a balanced budget come forward to the board for adoption in late September. So that time is dwindling fast, and that will be coming forward. Dealing with some different personnel matters. The personnel division is under administration, so we get to occasionally get involved in those. I was able to attend the Building Healthy Communities meeting, evening presentation on underage drinking in Del Mar County, and if you get a chance to see that presentation, whether it be online or any other time they present it, it's pretty sobering, and that's not a pun. It's something that's a problem in our community that needs to be addressed, and the kids and the young teens and young adults that put this on, extremely impressive. Very, very good job, and I think some people will be affected by it, and it'll be very positive. We have been dealing with some infrastructure issues, and one of those will be on the agenda today, which is a donation to the Vets Hall. We've also spoke with the VFW recently about the issues at the Vets Hall, and we'll hear more about that, it looks like. The road department interacted with one of our former partners, the American Fishing Foundation, which was Mark Warner, to get the docks put in Klamath. Extremely popular for the fishermen. I started getting call after call after call about having the docks in, because it is such an advantage, and the road department has taken on that task. We will be having a budget for a little bit of time for the road department to do that, but they'll be taking those in and putting those out. Mr. Warner assisted them in getting that set, and we had a couple of employees go down on a Sunday to do that, so that was nice. We've been dealing with some risk management issues, and we'll be reporting on one of those today. And in general terms, dealing with miscellaneous issues that come up that we're asked to get involved in other departments.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to actually pull item 4 to discuss from the consent agenda. I've got one item I wanted to discuss on that. So at this point, we are going to go to a timed item, since we're past that hour. We are going to go to public comment. Item 15 in the agenda. Oh, I guess we're actually short of that. We pushed it out. Okay, good job, Tony. At this point, I'll take the consent agenda minus item 4, 6, and 8, which have been pulled for discussion.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's moved and second. Any public comment on items on the consent agenda minus number 4, 6, and 8, because we will be discussing them separately? There's the agenda right to your left there. Okay, so we're talking about the rest of the agenda right now, the rest of the consent agenda minus those items, because we're going to talk about those items separately in a few minutes. After. We're at 4, 6, and 8 are going to be discussed after. Are you, do you want to comment on? Okay, that'll be discussed after. So this is the rest of the consent agenda right now.
Number 10.
Um,
Airport. I don't know what you want to talk about.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. Item 10 is dealing with the airport, and that is on the consent agenda. So 10 is dealing with the airport as well. So if you want to talk about the airport, right now is a good time.
Approve and authorize the Border Coast Regional
Could you
Airport-
identify yourself for
Yes, I'm
the
Connie
audience
Morrison,
listening?
And I'm in the county, I live in the county. And what I wanted to talk about was approve and authorize the Border Coast Regional...
Connie, you're going to need to speak up into the mic. And the mic's on, but you're going to need to speak into it.
Okay. Approve and authorize the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority use of county-owned property at Point St. George as a part of the mitigation package for the airport RSA project. Okay. I don't know. I brought in the covenants last week, 2 meetings ago, I guess it was. And so what I was going to do today was show you the interview that the EPA, Kevin Myers, and Alex Lee from the DTSC, when they came in 2009. These are the pictures.
You can pass it to Tony.
And I think it's important for people to know about the interview that these 2 men from the Environmental Protection Agencies, federal and state, had with the environmental person who works for the county. The summary of the conversation: Kevin Meyer, the EPA, and Alex Lee from the DTSC met with Ron Ajard from Delaware County at his office and later drove to the Delaware County Pesticide Storage Area site to continue our discussion along the site inspection. We introduced ourselves and discussed plans to proceed with a 5-year review, including the site inspection. Mr. Ajard is an experienced professional and has been working for Delaware County for a relatively short time. We spoke about the economic conditions of the county, particularly related to the sampling frequency and related analytical costs. There was some reason for optimism in the apparent slow rate of the decline of the groundwater contaminants in the final monitoring well above the cleanup levels. Yet the concentrations were likely to remain above the remedial action objectives for a few years at least. We discussed how the statistical analysis might help predict when the RAO may be attained and how many samples would be required for confirmation. In the meantime, the county was interested in reducing their costs by switching to a less frequent sampling schedule. We asked Mr. Ajard about the changes in land use patterns or development that might affect the project. He mentioned that there had been interest in expanding development of the county airport. This is in 2009. The Department of Health and Human Services...
Connie, you're going to need to wrap it up.
Okay, what they're saying is do not touch the land, do not do anything to the land. And they asked him, is there any plans to do anything with the land? And he said, well, there was some discussion about perhaps expanding the airport, but there's no money, so that won't be for a long time to come. That was in 2009. If I understand it right, you started expanding the airport in 2000. That's a lie. Somebody's lying here, either the EPA and the DTSC or the airport, what do you call yourselves? Airport authorities.
Airport authorities,
Yeah.
different body, but thank you. Any other public comment on the consent agenda items minus 4, 6, and 8? Got to bring it back to the board. Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, those items have been passed. We're going to go to public comment now, which was a timed item at 10:40. And briefly give you the... So members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less and identify yourself into the microphone. So we'll start with the public comment.
Signed in.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Sullivan, Martha, all of you. I've come to discuss something that's
Could you
very-
identify yourself also? Just
Yes, my name is Susan White,
Okay.
and I come to identify myself. I truly believe that some news that I'm bringing you is going to be very upsetting, and I don't mean to really have to do this. In 2004, I moved here in 1988 with my folks. They came up here in 1964, right before the tidal wave, and we kind of disappeared before the tidal wave came. We lived down the street from Martha McClure. My folks and I inherited his house and after he expired, and I've come to the conclusion that it's time for me to leave Delaware County. I'm leaving with such breaking heart. Most of my life was up here. I brought my daughter up. I raised my daughter up here with the greatest schools that there were. And something happened in 2003. And I've never been in trouble in my life. And all of a sudden, I could not figure out that I was constantly brought into you. I spent 2.5 years in your county jail under false charges after the deputy DA, Mr. Fallman, found out that I was innocent of all the charges. I'd already spent 2 years in your county jail. Well, my attorney at that time was Russell Clanton. And Russell Clanton had hired one of his associates, is Katie Mix, which is your deputy DA, that's actively taking on cases right now, well, the absence of John Alexander. In 2004, right after my case had settled, Mr. Clanton had fired Miss Mix, suddenly fired her. And since Miss Mix had found out that I inherited some of my father's money and everything, she came to me as a friend, and where attorneys should stay attorneys and friends should stay friends. It kind of got mixed up there, and she borrowed $2,500 from me until she was able to get the money back from her employer. In 2006, I met, like the small town that we mix into here, we all mix into going down to Safeway. I brought it to her attention that she needed to pay back the money to me. It wasn't a loan, it was a loan, but it was not a gift. And she took offense by this. She has now spent, speaking to the state controller's office and your tax collector's thing, she's spent over $1 million of your county money on bringing charges on to me, which each time the charges were
Mrs. White, I'm going to need
no,
your...
I know.
Yeah, I need to
I
wrap
just
up.
want, you're a money person. You can figure out what could have been spent with that money that she used, the non-necessary deal. So I filed some papers with the office, with the Superior Court to stop this action. I do want to explain to you guys that I'm very sorry for our little mix-up between Ms. Mix and I that cost the county some money that they could have used to appropriate in other fields. I brought you, all of you guys, and I will submit this to your secretary over here for all of you to have copies and everything. And I'm not asking for her termination, from her deal, but they have made a ruling at the attorney's board to possibly suspend her.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment at this point? Yeah. Good morning.
Good day. My name's Alex Campbell. I'm the store manager at the Crescent City Home Depot here in town. We have a program called Team Depot where it's a volunteer, associate-led volunteer program, and we look for projects throughout the community to help support. A lot of our associates have a lot of know-how in fixing things, stuff like that. Very knowledgeable associates. We'd like to get together with the VFW and do some projects within that building, and I'd very much like to ask for your support in doing those things. I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that. I had a small inspection of the building recently. A lot of work needs to be done there, and I ask all of you for your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sparky Countess. A couple of things to say here. Anyway, I'm here representing VFW Post 1381. Our commander, Jerry Johnson's away on a medical appointment. But I'm here to give thanks for the grateful and outstanding donation to the VFW Post and Veterans of Delaware County from Home Depot and manager Alex Campbell for going forward and recognizing the veterans of Delaware County to assist in the lack of maintenance of the Veterans Memorial Building located at 810 H Street. Their donations will include the following: bleaching the walls to remove mildew, mold, prime coat and stain resistant material, and finish coat the side dining room off the kitchen. Also, they will varnish the floor on the stage, which is basically been over the 70-something years, it's been pretty well rubbed up. There are many areas that we are currently looking at to bring the Veterans Memorial Building to a presentable and pride of ownership for the veterans of Delaware County. VFW Post 1381 most recently has shampooed and dry cleaned the stage curtains that have not had any cleaning for over 60 years. They're the areas that the VFW Post has maintained is in the front porch area that is continually bombarded with bird dung, and the only time that this area is clean is by the VFW Post 1381. We want to personally thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of VFW Post 1381 and giving updated information to the veterans of Delaware County. Again, we want to thank Home Depot and Alex Campbell for stepping up front and offering their generous donations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes.
May I address Sparky and Alex? First of all, I want to say it's great news to the community. It's long overdue. Alex, is Home Depot's commitment, is it to veterans? Is this your mission?
Alex, do you want to come up to the microphone?
Yeah.
Please.
And I wanted to, you've spoken about this before, and that Home Depot has a special commitment to the veteran, and that's part of your, what can I say, raison d'etre? Is this accurate? Is this where you devote almost 100% of your community outreach?
Yes, the company as a whole has dedicated itself to helping veterans in local communities. They've done several projects. I think, I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but we've started a 5-year program, $80 million that we're trying to get to veterans and to help veterans, especially with housing. I understand that there's a lot of services that come out of the VFW Hall, and we would like to be a part in making it a place that veterans can go to and obtain those services.
Well, again, Alex, I say thank you. You're a great partner in the community, and I'm a great partner with Home Depot. It's indicated by my orange credit card, which I get every month.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate the donation. Any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to close public comment. We had a timed item at 10:45, Veterans Memorial Hall donation. Jay, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. Recently, David Kettlewell came to the office and asked that he be able to donate some time and materials to recoat the floor at the Veterans Hall. I think most everybody's been over there. Davey's been the one responsible for taking that floor back to what the condition is today. We had a steam leak, we had asbestos issues, and ultimately he was a subcontractor that worked with Rick Parker Construction to put it in the condition it is, which is a very significant floor for us because it's now pushing 100 years old. And obviously you can't replace something like that. Well, Davey had come forward and asked that he be able to donate some time and effort in recoating the floor in order to also, I guess it was in deference to his sister retiring from the Air Force. So at this point, Davey, if you'd like to say anything, if you want to come forward, it's a request for the donation.
Good morning. My name is Dave Kettlewell, and yeah, as Jay was saying, my sister has been in the Air Force for 23 years, and on September 11th, she is retiring from the Air Force. I'm very proud of her, and I think it would be something that needs to be done as far as re-coating the floor with 2 fresh coats of finish in honor of veterans and my sister.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate it. It's great. We saw the work you did before. You did a great job on the floor.
I'd move for approval.
Second?
It's been moved to second. Any public comment on that? Okay. Tony, yeah.
I just want to say thank you, and that you
Great.
raised the bar for every brother of what he needs to do for his sisters. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm glad you raised the bar. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
on that note, and you know, a lot of appreciation for what Home Depot is doing through the VFW and Sparky bringing that forward. Just want to officially put that on the agenda, the next agenda, for the board to accept that.
Okay.
So that we can go through the official process, and then ask that they work through Ed Fulton, our building superintendent, and myself, and we'll work out any of the improvements or any of the specific steps that need to be done.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate both Home Depot's contribution and the veterans community contribution, the VFW contribution to the hall, and Mr. Kettlewell's as well. And it's always needed on public buildings. So, Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to, we're still short on that. So we're going to go to, we're going to take, if we can take the budget transfers first, and then we'll jump back to 4, 6, and 8. I'll entertain a motion for budget transfers.
I'd move approval for budget transfer 06-25, 06-26, 06-27, and 06-28, 11, 12, 13, 14 on the agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Any public comment on the budget transfers? Okay, seeing no public comment. Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes?
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, so we're going to go back to we still have 5 minutes before the next public item. We're going to go to item 4, approve and authorize chair to sign purchase and sale agreements for mitigation purposes associated with Border Coast Regional Airport Authority's runway safety area improvement project as requested by the county administrative officer. I pulled this from the agenda because I was noticing, I know as a county we have a preference for local businesses in there, and I noticed the title company was listed out of Eureka. So my preference was that we would have a local preference with business, and that would be one of them, that we'd look at a local title company in that regards. So I don't know if we would forward this back to the Border Coast Airport Authority and have them select the title company, but we do have a local preference on that. So
I think that what we could do is get a hold of Jim Bernard and explain to him the board's preference to attempt to use a local company. If it's their decision, then it really is their decision, but we can certainly try to influence that.
okay, that would be my preference then. So I would entertain a motion to accept number 4 with preference for a local title company in the process.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing no public comment, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Tony, could you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, item 5, approve and authorize the chair to... Item 6, excuse me. Approve and authorize the chair to sign agreement with the California Department of Health Care Services, assuring Department of Health and Human Services Public Assistance Employment and Training Branch compliance, maintaining the privacy and security of Medi-Cal personnel, identifiable information as requested by Director of Health and Human Services. Supervisor Gitlin, you pulled this item.
I did, Chair Sullivan, and you know, when I'm looking this narrative over, again, I received this, my agenda on Friday, so I looked it over and I'm looking at the recommendation, which is to approve and authorize the chair to sign the agreement with the California Department of Health Services, assuring Department of Health and Human Services Public Assistance Employment and Training Branch compliance, maintaining the privacy and security of Medi-Cal personally identifiable information. That's a mouthful. So whenever I'm looking things over, I try to read everything, and I try to read it twice, and I'm looking at the alternative, which is do not sign the agreement and risk access to the Medi-Cal eligibility data system being terminated by the state. Well, clearly I don't see that as any kind of a remote, even a remote threat, and I just see this as another set of government eyes peering in on our governance, and it disturbs me. It's we're taking a blind leap of faith. I'm pretty sure this entire board cannot tell us all what all are the regulations and restrictions as set forth by all of this federal governance here. So it disturbs me that we have yet another set of eyes coming into our county, and that's why I, at the risk of having access to medical eligibility data system, which I seriously doubt, that I would oppose this.
Okay, any other supervisory questions, concerns? Director Blackman, you have any?
No.
Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and second.
Second.
Any public item, comment on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
No.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes, thank you. Item, well, you might as well stay up here. Or item 7, or excuse me, item 8. Approve and authorize the chair to sign the agreement with Crestwood Behavioral Health, Inc., CBH, out of Sacramento, California, to provide psychiatric placement services for adults for the period July 1st, there's a typo in there, 2013 through June 30th, 2014, not to exceed $300,500 as requested by Director of Health and Human Services. Supervisor Gitlin, you pulled this.
Yes, again, I did pull this item, and I want to make sure that I'm understanding the narrative correctly in the book of Mr. Blatnick. Is this a Humboldt firm that's going to be providing needed psychiatric services, or is this a Sacramento firm? I sent you an email on that. I did not hear back from you on that. Can you clarify that?
Well, it's a Sacramento-owned company. That's where they're housed. They operate facilities throughout the state of California. One of the facilities they operate is in Humboldt County. This agreement is specifically with the Humboldt County services.
Okay, so this is actually what I wanted to confirm, that there is in fact some kind of what the word I'm thinking of is some kind of a easing off of sending people who are in great need on long ambulance drives. So this one is at least a shorter one, which I'm pleased to see that we're moving in that direction. So that's the direction. So I'd like to see, if possible, that there be more work with this, since we do not have a local psychiatrist in our community to serve those needs, which is yet another subject, that when in all possible, we use as much as we can local services.
Just to correct you there for a moment, this is not a psychiatric emergency hospital. This is a long-term care. These are long-term care facilities that we've had agreements with for years. This doesn't change our current use of the short-term psychiatric emergency facilities.
Also the start date is July 4th, so this is already in motion, right?
July 1st?
Yeah. It's on for 2 months.
That's most of our agreements take time to go through the process of approvals, which means the facility has to approve them, has to be approved at the county council level. We have to agree on rate structure, and usually our agreements take anywhere between 90 to 120 days to work through the process. In the meantime, we operate as though the agreement were going to be approved. We just continue marching forward, and as soon as we have the written agreement, it's retroactive to that first day.
Is there any way to put something before our Board of Supervisors that we actually vote on it before it effectuates, Mr. Platnick?
In most likelihood, we, especially with ongoing agreements, that's not something that we've been able to do, in part because the facility doesn't even have its rates available to us. In order to negotiate a new rate by the effective date, these things take a tremendous amount of time. So this is the way that we've operated from as long as I've been the director, and it seems to be an effective way to not disrupt services for our clients and make sure that we maintain a good working relationship with each facility.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment on this item, which is item number 8 in the agenda? Yeah, public comment on number 8 only. Okay, come on up.
I'm Connie Morrison from the county. After working in Alameda County at John
sir.
George,
Yes, sir, Mike, you're going to have to bring it down and talk into it. There you go.
I worked for Alameda County at their psychiatric facility, John George, and we had long-term patients. I worked actually in the emergency room, and they'd be on a 72-hour hold. And this county really, really needs some type of psych service. I've been here about 8 years, I guess. I see hundreds of thousands of dollars spent for facilities that, first of all, it's not therapeutic for a psych patient to have to go away. What you want to do is help people integrate into their community, with their family, where the family can come and visit, see how the day went, and it's real helpful for me as the nurse to see what the family says. They're looking good, and see how the medicine's going, whatever. This is silly to spend all this money time after time, and you want to attract people up here and create jobs. That would. And there's nothing to a psych facility. I mean, it's not like you have to have ambu bags and emergency rooms and, all that kind of thing. You need a bed, a little room.
Okay, thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison, I agree with you. I think the conversation, the discussion needs to be initiated and prioritized, that we need a local psychiatrist in our community. This transportation of those in need to places far and off is something that needs to be addressed, and that's part of it here. Chair Sullivan, this is something we're always going on, is
Well, I would
moving
agree.
people
I
from
thi- I
point A
think-
to point B.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing this up as part of this discussion, that the conversation needs to be held on how we can get a local psychiatrist and what the Department of Health and Human Services can do in working with Sutter Health to make that happen.
Well, I would encourage you to form a committee to put a working group together to work on attracting a business here. Because right now, and to answer your question, Mrs. Morrison, any private business can move into Delaware County and set up shop. And then they would be eligible to contract with the county. So you just need to attract some business here on that side to, that's yeah. Well, we're not having a dialogue. I'm just answering your question. It is open. Right now, we're very limited on our selection, and that's who he is. So, Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, that's been moved. And we are going to go to our timed item, and Sheriff Wilson's here. We have a presentation of 10-year deputy uniform badges. So, Sheriff Wilson, if you could approach the mic.
This is a tradition that we started just a few years back. And it is a method that we can personally recognize the deputies that have served Delaware County for over 10 years, or 10 years and over. So today we have these officers, Deputy Tim Wiley, Deputy Carl Berry, and both of these two officers have had their advanced certificates, which is the highest certificate given by post to a first-line officer. The next certificate for hopefully for either one of these gentlemen will be a supervisory certificate when they can advance to the rank of sergeant or higher. So at this date, at this time, we are recognizing them with this badge. Now this badge is a new badge that we developed just for this purpose. And it has our county seal in the center. The old badges we used to have had the state seal on there. This has our county seal. And this also has their name on the badge. So it recognizes them as different from their current badge, which just says Deputy Sheriff.
Sheriff, could you kind of put that to your left a little bit, just so that camera can see it? Oh, yeah. No, you got to back up to the mic and show it to your right.
Show it to my right?
Your right.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. Yeah.
All right. And both of these officers are, and I hope, will be the future of our office. We also have two other badges that would have been awarded today, and that is Detective Ed Fleshman and Seth Semino, Deputy Semino. Deputy Semino, unfortunately, is in the middle of a garden right now. It is marijuana season, and he is doing that job today. And unfortunately, Detective Fleshman ended up having to do a search warrant this morning. He had not planned to, but it ended up having to be called immediately. So it is my honor and my pleasure to award these tenure badges to these two fine deputies, and because these are your future and the future of the Delaware County Sheriff's Office. Thank you so much.
No speeches, huh?
Thank you.
Hey, we appreciate your dedication to the community and law enforcement, and you guys have done a great job, and congratulations on hitting that 10-year mark. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, we are through, we're short of our other timed item. Let's jump to item 19, directs, oh, by the way, we do have an urgency item that we needed to add to the agenda, and that wasn't done earlier, but urgency item, it's in letter in support of H.R. 1526, direct staff to prepare a letter in support of H.R. 1526, which is Healthy Forests for Healthy Communities. H.R. 1526 provides a common sense approach for returning to sustainable forest management where the planned harvest can occur in a reasonable amount of time. I will entertain a motion to move this onto the agenda.
So move.
As an urgency item. I believe it's coming up here. What's the, Jay, do you know when the vote's happening on this? What's that? August 30th. So we do need to do it today. I'll entertain a motion to add this to the agenda.
I moved.
It's been moved to second. All those in favor of adding it to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, it's on the agenda, and let's go ahead and discuss this item. Jay, do you want to add any background on this?
Well, this just did come in yesterday. I believe it's been in the Senate at this point. The House is going to be considering it, and essentially it's a proposal to offset some of the issues to deal with the secured rural schools loss of funding and reductions. It is one proposal that I believe is out there, and it came out of Doc Hastings' office. It would allow the opening up of some forests under a very strict protocol in regards to timber harvest. It also deals with some of the environmental process, and as such right now, I think this is a starting point for the discussion.
Okay. Any comments or board members or questions?
Excuse me, Jay, but the funding, does this affect any of the funding that we have in place now?
Right now, it appears that this is in addition to the SRS continuing at some level. The numbers are not in this text as far as secured rural schools. This appears to be in addition to that. Essentially, from reading this one, it appears that they're attempting to get more active management on the forest to allow some of the more rural communities to see timber harvest that has not been occurring under a certain protocol here. And like I said, I do believe this is the start of the discussion. It'll be a long discussion, obviously, because there are items in here that I think the Senate will probably want to weigh in on. And ultimately, we would hope for something that would give us some new opportunities to be able to see the forest to be managed, yield tax to be received, and allow us to also augment our budgets here to provide the services that have been restricted primarily because of the loss of revenue over the years and the transition from a more robust logging industry and timber yield. It is meant to be sustainable, so that is always something that's worth looking at for any type of rural county, but it's looks like it'd be something that would help the western counties for sure.
I'd move for a letter of support.
Okay, do a second?
Chair Sullivan, could I just ask Jay a quick question or two on this before we move forward? Jay, we're getting this before the deadline, August 30th. Is there any reason for the lateness of it? There's nothing in writing, and it all sounds great. Is there any, what's the chronology now once we approve?
Well, I believe that's what you'll be seeing is that it'll be in front of the Senate, you'll have it in the House, and then possibly going on into committee, and then the debate begins. I know that Mr. Hastings' office has been working on some solutions for a period of years. Also on the Democratic side out of Oregon, Mr. DeFazio's office has also been looking at some options. Obviously, Oregon has O&C land, which is different than some of the other lands. I do know from our trip to Washington, D.C., these different offices have been speaking to try to come up with some sort of solution primarily for the western states and counties.
Chair Sullivan, I'll offer that second.
Okay, Supervisor Gittens seconded. Any public comment on this item? Okay, I'm going to close public comment then, bring it back to the board. I couldn't agree more. We got to start somewhere. I know when Supervisor Finnegan and I and yourself were back in D.C., Doc Hastings had a hearing regarding the Interior Secretary Tidwell, and boy, it was pretty verbal. So Tidwell was under a lot of fire as to not actively managing the forest. And I think the forest fires we're dealing with right now is a perfect example of why they need to do something different than is being done right now. And then you bring up the finances, and we, in this rural county, especially with this much timberland in it, to be in this kind of financial bind, things have to change. So
Management by fire, is what we got now.
Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor McClure?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, we are at the other timed item, 11:15, which is number 18 in the agenda. Assist and support the 41st District Agricultural Association in order to establish a long-term solution as to the future of Delaware County, and instruct the county lobbyists to support and assist the Fair Board to obtain approved legislation as requested by the 41st District Ag Association. So I guess, Randy, you want to come up?
Good morning. Before I forget, I am going to hand these out.
Randy, you want to identify yourself just for the people watching in the audience?
Randy Hatfield, I'm
Okay.
the CEO for the Del Norte County Fair.
Okay.
Just to, I think there's an extra copy for Jay here too. Just to give you some background on the situation that the fair industry and the Del Norte County Fair is facing at this time. The horse racing funds used to support the fairs since 1935, 36. horse racing throughout the state of California contributed to the financing of all fairs, small and large. This went on until the year 2009, when the financing or the funding of horse racing disappeared due to competition with other gambling institutions in the state. This funds disappeared, and in that year, in 2009, 2010, they decided to fund the fairs through the general fund. Our fair and our fair board decided that at that time it was necessary to start preparing for what we're facing today, the lack of funding. So we decided to do a lot of cutting. We cut all our personnel to part-time personnel. At times, I am doing the books, doing the contracts, and doing the maintenance. So it's a challenge daily, and but we're getting through it. We do and we have to do what's necessary. And we decided to cut our budget and put a lot of money away so that if something should happen, that we could survive. We could at least survive long enough to make a determination of how we were going to solve our problem. The Fair Board had the insight to do this and the foresight to do this. And unlike other fairs, we are at least giving ourselves 3 years to survive. We project that if nothing happens, that in 2016 our fair and fairgrounds will close. And when I say fair, I mean fairgrounds as well. The fairgrounds will close up the doors, lock the key, turn off the lights, and go away. So that's really an important message there to get out, is that we're not only talking about the fair, we're talking about the fairgrounds itself. Based on a meeting that I went to in November, a fair managers meeting, there was 60 or 70 fair managers there at the meeting. The Department of Food and Ag director addressed the Fair Board. Knowing that there was no funding available, they came and made a statement that we will budget $250,000 to help close the fairs as they gradually close, to make it a simple or gradual closure of each fair as that happens. Hearing that, I returned back to our Fair Board and said, we need to do something. We need to take care of our situation ourselves, because there's nobody going to do that. We, the Fair Board, got together, discussed options, discussed which direction we needed to go. And our biggest challenge is coming up with $180,000 of revenue that we lost from the state. Just by forming a nonprofit or a JPA or a special district doesn't do it. Without one, you got to have the other. So we decided to go into this process, and I think that we have come up with a solution that will meet the needs of the community as well as the fairgrounds. I'm going to turn this part over to Kevin Hartwick, the board director, to talk to you and take you through the process that we have come up with.
Morning, my name is Kevin Hartwick. I'm a member of the Fair Board, Delaware County Fair. Want to, first off, this obviously is a personal issue to all of us. Everybody on this board has participated in the fair. Mr. Gitlin has been out at the rodeo and ushered people in. Mr. Hemmingson has been a contributor, and his family's going up here. Mike's been sorting chickens in the barn, and Martha's been dealing with doughboys. That's about as real as it gets. So we're talking about a place, not only the fair, but the fairgrounds. It means a lot to so many people. The other bit of background information, the realities of our ability to meet the projected 2016 fair is only due to the fact that the County Board of Supervisors purchased land that allowed the juvenile hall facility to be moved. It was in the wisdom of the Fair Board prior to us being appointed that they set aside that money. They thought the money would be set aside for capital improvements, for economic development. And that's our preference as well, is with only the availability of those funds that actually any of this is all possible. So although we appreciate it, we choose not to use that as a way to go, but it's the only thing that's going to allow this process to move forward in any direction. The other part about it is, in the process of working through this for many years, the opportunity to create additional revenue has been first in the forefront of all the Fair Board members and all the meetings. Items such as incorporating partners such as Redwood Coast Transit, Verizon Towers, various businesses that are on the fairgrounds, including the opportunity to do additional rents from all activities, has been first and foremost, so it hasn't been just now discovered. One of the reasons why additional revenue potentially is not on the site now is, if you all recall back several years ago, the fairgrounds entered into a process of Rumiano Cheese to cite a very proactive economic development activity in the fairgrounds, and all that would have been really good, with the exception that we, as the state of California, and the process that is required, prevented that from happening efficiently enough over 2 years of just process with no real outcome, that the developer backed out, and that would have been a very important piece of additional revenue. It still leaves us in a position we are today, as Randy laid out. The Fair Board, in process, decided the only way we could really look at this is to back up and take a look at our options. And we wanted to memorialize those in a report. We contracted out and had what we titled Reinventing the Wheel as our report to address options. Options that existed: do nothing. The do nothing option led to ultimate demise, specifically announced by the state of California. There is no money, and the only money is to close. So that option, not a real viable one. It does lead to closure in 2016. Seek additional funding locally, a nonprofit version of fundraising. The fair has had active participation from all nonprofits, as we all know. We have had active participation from the business community in supporting things like the rodeo. Enormous amount of money contributed every year. We ask and receive many, many donations in the community, not only in money but in time. So the community is stepping up in a big way to contribute. It still leaves dollars short. The state of California also, Randy mentioned that the $180,000 that was shut off is one piece of funding that was eliminated. That would have been just operational funding. That's just keeping doors and lights and people working. Deferred maintenance is not addressed, and over the years the state called it different things, but it was capital improvement money. Stuff like fixing the electricity, dealing with the underground plumbing systems, dealing with roofs that cave in and other things. So that money went away in addition, which means in the future there is no money to do those much needed repairs, especially the emergency repairs that come up. There is no funding for that. So we address the fact that simply looking for the community to step up in simple donations is an approach, and it needs to be leveraged, but it doesn't answer the long term. A final proposal was to talk to the community and say, all right, we've got the situation. It's clearly about funding and money, and we'd like to ask what your opinion is. And we went out with a poll, and the poll asked a lot of questions and gathered a lot of information. It asked about what you knew about the fair and the fairgrounds. It asked a whole lot of questions, sometimes a little too complicated, but when it came right down to it, it's the polls gave us the information. When asked what you thought about it, the community supported an investment in the fair. There was various actions that they were asked about. Could it be a quarter cent, half cent, a property tax, and they voiced their opinion on those issues. as provided for in the poll. They also voiced their opinion on local control. Obviously, local control is talked about from a lot of different perspectives. But it was clear to me, and I think clear to the Fair Board, that this has to be different this time if we're going to ask the community to deal with the fair. This has to be that it's theirs, truly theirs, and that means moving forward with not only an investment, but a control of those assets. We began doing investigation, and we looked at how is this approach taken on. 2 different attorneys have provided us advice, actually 3 now, on how we address this issue. Obviously, we don't have a lot of money to spend on attorneys. Each of these attorneys up to this point in time have been pro bono work. As we get further into this process, obviously, that changes a little bit, and we've not sought counsel from the county legal team at this point in time, but hopefully we will be doing that. The poll spoke, the community spoke through the poll, and they have concluded in the poll that when asked if you knew that the fair is going to close, would you support, under certain situations and certain circumstances, a quarter-cent sales tax to be sustained for 7 years and sunsetting in 7 years, and those assets be funneled into the operation of a complete fairgrounds with community support. At this point, we sought assistance. We're tiptoeing through the process as to what it really takes, and we've gotten various opinions on what we need to do. In the interest of formation of a new entity that would control the resources that were contributed by this community, we are told we need to go through a LAFCO process. That process, although seems like takes a while, it seems like that's what we need to do, and we've been told optimistically 6 months for the formation. Starting right away, we'd like to get that process rolling. We would ask for support to understand that process and to allow us to have an entity ready for the community to decide upon prior to November 14 election, and we're now going to move down that path. The second phase of this, assuming that legislation is not required, and we've been told by at least one attorney in Sacramento that the County of Del Norte in the future may ask the taxpayers and the voters to place an item on the ballot for their approval of a tax increase. That would not, as our understanding goes, require legislative change. I got to tell you, as we tiptoed through this process of possibly requiring legislative change, it became really apparent to me that we just aren't very important here. I kind of hoped we were a little more important, but it appears from all discussions, we're just not a priority. And I guess it's not a surprise, but what it does give as insight is that we got to help ourselves. The miracle is not coming this time around. There is no funds going to be dropped from the sky. And realistically, our starting on this process well in advance is both a good thing from my perspective, but I think a bad thing from other people's perspective, because sometimes they only respond to an emergency or a failure. What we're doing is we don't want to let it get there. So we asked today, based on the letter, that the Board of Supervisors instruct their lobbyists to, when asked, to include this as a higher priority. We hope that we can get active support from council to help us through what it really means to go through this process. And then in the end, we hope that as individuals and others that we all work together for a long-term solution to this process. We don't believe that this is the long-term solution and never have counted on it to be. Senate Bill 741, which is going through the process now, eliminates an enormous amount of red tape. That red tape is what prevented things really like Rumianos from pushing forward in a more efficient basis. If those things are eliminated, it gives us a better chance to talk to developers in a way that they understand. That is, can we get the deal done or not? And can we get additional revenue to the fair? So this is not a cure-all, not as expected to be. We expect it to engage in active conversation with the community on a go-forward basis as how this situation is cured for the long haul for the kids and grandkids that are coming along to the next use of this fairgrounds. So with that, we can entertain any questions.
Just to make it just a little more succinct, two things. You're looking for support right now of county support in terms of helping 741 get through, and SB, for those not familiar with 741, it would allow local control of the fair board, or what exactly?
It gets, Senate Bill 741 is the only thing we've got that's going to help the fair, even though it may not be perfect for everything.
Yeah.
No other effort is afoot to help any fair.
Okay.
It's primarily leasing and allow...
Your mic's off.
It's primarily leasing and how different possessions of the fair are counted in relationship to assets. So it's not a particular bill that allows local control in relationship to becoming a JPA,
Right.
or local control to be standalone, or local control to own the land, but it does open up the doors for leasing.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question for Kevin. First of all, Kevin, I don't think I've actually met you before. It's nice to
meet you.
finally put a name and a face together. When someone says tax to me, it just rankles me. I'm sorry, it's just probably in my DNA, but when I see an additional tax on a state which is so overburdened with taxation, we're the highest in the nation. You have the misfortune of living in Los Angeles County, you're looking at 10% tax. We're lucky up here. So I'm looking at this graph here, and I'm not so sure where I sit on this, whether I'm part of the 34 or part of the 54, because I think that the fair is very important. It's the soul of our community. But when you're talking about priorities, you're looking at last chance grade, you're looking at the hospital, you're looking at the airport. Where does the fair sit in that category? And I guess it's not my first choice, it'd be my second choice to support this by moving forward with a 0.25% sales tax. But the first choice would be is to develop some kind of a private model, one in which a corporation is formed, investment in the community, where because of its key location, you're talking about the best location in Del Norte County, 700,000 cars a year drive by there. Have a series, you could have a whole revitalization of our community by putting in new stores and new restaurants and parimutuel dog racing and horse racing, satellite betting. I don't want to see something which just merely sustains the model for 7 years. You don't address the long-term problem. I think the long-term problem relies in the community of setting this area free to really realize its economic potential. I think this could be a tremendous opportunity if during this next 2-year period, because we are going to have a fair next year, and we're going to have a fair the year after that. It's 2016, where the rubber hits the road and either we're out or we're not, is that we begin to look and see about the state leasing back this land. And I'm not quite sure what the acreage is. Could you tell us how many acres the fairgrounds is total? Is it 100 and... Yeah, I thought it was somewhere in that area.
Randy, do you want to join us up with Mike here? Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking is this because it's probably the most ideal acres, unless you're on Pebble Beach Drive, in town. And I think the time is now to discuss the possibility of having the state lease this back to a private entity and then looking not just to survive, but to actually flourish. Let's look at this as an opportunity to make this fair extremely special. And I'm sure this is not unique just to Del Norte County. We're talking about scores of fairs around the state are facing the same dilemma. So, yeah, if you're asking support as a priority, yes it is. It's probably number 4 behind the 3 that I just mentioned. But it is vitally important. It's the soul of our community. And a 0.25% sales tax would not be my first choice, but if I list the things plus and the list of things minus on each side of a piece of paper, yeah, I would probably be somewhere in that middle of that graph that you have there, leaning one way, leaning the other, because there's a greater good here. But I'd like us to look into this opportunity, and if this board so sees fit to move of the 2x2 committee, I'd like to see about looking at a privatization of this fair process. Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hemmingson, you had a comment?
Yeah, I think you outlined it pretty well. I don't think it's a 2-year process that you can pull yourself up and all of a sudden decide what's going to happen. And I think, I think allowing the people to decide on whether they want to pay a 0.25% sales tax, hey, we may agree or not agree with the sales tax itself, but to put it up to the people, I'm all in favor of that. I'm also in favor of putting it on the priority list. I don't know that you can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They all need to run on parallel tracks. They're all important. The hospital is certainly very important. The airport is certainly very important. Last chance grade is very important. It's all part of our economic viability. The fair is very important. So, they all need to run on parallel tracks. They're all very important. Without any one of them, we diminish ourselves in some capacity. And I think the plan that you outlined was to take this 7-year plan. Once the property, if we get to that point where the property can be on a privatized basis, then you can decide what you can and can't do with it. I don't think that can be done over a 2-year period. I don't think there's enough time. So I think you're on the right track, and I'm certainly supportive of it.
Supervisor McClure.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that you've been doing on this, and I just want to, I think that we do count, and I think that Chesbrough's office with Emily and Lisa were working very hard, but running up against the legislative gut and amend, where there was the requirement for an urgency vote, that's where we hit the wall, because we knew that the Republican side of the aisle was not going to sign up. In fact, I think our Senator Nelson said no thank you in relationship to being of an asset here. So I want that to be very clear. I know that it took Mendocino County 2 years to become a 501c3. And so that, to me, I'm not sure is the route that we can take. I think that SB 741, if we can get that support, that's where we may see some of the leases. I've always historically also wanted to dog the leases of Caltrans and CDF, since they're currently giving us $1 a year to the 41st Agricultural District, which is not enough money for the amount of highway frontage that they have. So I think that we should be pushing on that one. I think that maybe what we should do is, within relationship to the board, possibly Chesbrough's office, and possibly the Board of Supervisors, the Fair Board, I think that we should maybe have a sit-down with Karen Roth, the Director of the Ag Commission, and say, this is where we are and this is what we're looking at, and identify these very, very valuable lands that we currently have, and start talking about how we can rework those. Because I know that when I'm talking with Lisa, they get a little panicky when they start talking about state land swap. And I don't think it needed to be a discussion of state land swap. I think it can actually be a discussion of long-term lease, especially with the new structure. And then I haven't been able to do enough research yet, and I don't know if you guys have, in relationship to forming it as a JPA, because that apparently is just a stroke of the pen of the Ag Commissioner that can set your route. But I'm not sure what you get to do with leasing when you go into a JPA. So we would want, I think that's where we would want council to take a long, hard look at it. And that I'm glad that you're talking about bringing this onto the January ledge agenda. Hopefully it's not going to be a 2-year bill. Hopefully we can get it as a 1-year bill, if we need to even have it as a 1-year bill. But I think that another place that we should be looking at is that as a county, I know this is going to sound kind of strange, but it could be a reach, that as a county, in exchange for the many thousands of dollars that the state owes us for in lieu, that we could possibly identify some of this land as the exchange. And that way it would free the Fair Board up to be able to start to develop it. That we, kind of start to think a little bit out of the box and start maybe making some, for lack of a better term, horse deals. So I appreciate your work. I will be glad to continue to talk with Lisa and Emily, but I know that that Emily spent an enormous amount of work trying to figure it out and couldn't get it to a gut and amend. So that's where we are.
And I would agree. I mean, it is a priority, and I think we as a county need to list it as a priority. And I think right now is just getting to, we have a little more control over the process. Granted, it's not a full give us the land, which would be, long-term would be, my preference is that we have full control of the land at that point. But we need to start somewhere, and as Supervisor Hemmingson, 2 years is not enough time to fully jump to privatization. Maybe that's far off, so I'll entertain a motion at this point.
Chair Sullivan, I just want to clarify what Supervisor McClure identified with Senator Nielsen. He is not a stalwart against this. I've had a conversation with him. He and I have been talking about this. He's kind of like where I'm coming from now. He's somewhere in that middle. He's not happy about this tax, but he doesn't want to see this fair die. And I want to make that very clear to those in the audience who think that Senator Jim Nielsen's feet are in the cement on that. Quite the contrary, we're looking for a solution. We happen to think that the taxation component is not solution number one. That doesn't mean it can't be utilized, but I want to make it clear to Senator Nielsen, and I will be talking with him on this. He has a dog in this fight. He sits in this, the problem is in the Senate, not in the Assembly, as I understand, with 741. So we'll be talking some more, and I'll report back to you.
And if I could, on one of the comments Mr. Gitlin made about the additional and creative processes, one thing you will find about this Fair Board is we are open to any and all discussions, and there is no pride of ownership about one or the other. Well, our process is to look to provide a solution for the community to go forward. Any and all insights that people have to drive this in any direction. Ultimately, a decision has to be made, but we welcome any and all ideas. The idea that we've always identified that as a valuable piece of property for development is absolutely on the forefront of all our thoughts, and the idea that we could bring in a developer to make an agency continue to provide everything at the fairgrounds while economic development is absolutely a perfect solution. And we want to have that opportunity. We were not given that opportunity in the prior years. It was taken away from us by process. We don't want it to be taken away. So this local control issue about putting a first step in place and then making some very solid steps, and I can promise you there will not be just accept the tax and don't do anything. There will be continuous energy put into this process. We have a longer term solution. We're starting 3 years in advance. And the next part of this is a strategic plan that takes us well into the future, and that's partnerships with, it's definitely partnerships with private business.
But just for clarification, 741 doesn't enact the tax. That's going to be a separate issue altogether the voters of Delaware County would vote on.
Absolutely.
So today we're looking for support from the county in terms of getting 741 put through, which will allow Delaware some more independence than what we currently have. So through leases of the fairgrounds. So this 741 itself is not a tax. It doesn't say anywhere in the legislation that that's the case.
No,
it's
but I
up to the
think
local
that the
voters. I
request,
understand that.
I think that the request is also to ask that county lobbyist and county council assist the Fair Board into looking at the possibility of a November 14 ballot vote
Correct.
in relationship to a 7-year quarter-cent sales tax.
And I think also that we need to put it on our list of priorities. I don't think it's on our list of priorities now, and we need to make sure that that's,
So is that a motion?
yes.
Okay, so the motion
With
was
all those
to...
things. Put it on the list of our priorities, use our lobbyists, and have staff help as best we can.
Okay. We get a second?
Second.
Let's move to second. Any public item, comment on this item? Mr. Lonsdale.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bill Lonsdale, and I live in Crescent City. At the outset, let me say that I hope that you guys will give the Fair Board all the support that it needs. But my concern is about process here a little bit. The description of the agenda item in the agenda was, I think, a little disingenuous, perhaps not deliberately, but it failed to identify the two major issues that you all have brought out today. The creation of yet another special district and giving it the ability to put a ballot measure on the ballot for a tax. Had the agenda identified those two issues as being under consideration, this room would be filled with Tea Party people today, probably. And so the public has not had a chance to react to what's really going on, which I think is probably the way that we'll have to go, as much as I respect Supervisor Gitlin's privatization proposal, simply because, as has been pointed out, the time and uncertainty involved with that. But I think that we need to be careful in making agendas that we identify the issues for the public. Now, for those who download the agenda and go read the staff report, and fortunately this morning the paper identified the issues, but that doesn't always happen. So perhaps if we could be a little more careful to make sure that the agenda descriptions identify the issues, because for this, folks who consider themselves small government conservatives and folks who are opposed to taxes viscerally, and there are a lot of those in the community, many of them speaking out, more loudly than others. On the one hand, we want to do away with a district. On the other hand, we want to create a district. There's a disconnect there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lonsdale. Any other public comment? Okay, so bring it back to the board.
Well, I was just, I think the motion was, if I remember right when I made it, was to make this a priority, to help the Fair Board, to use staff as best they can help out, time.
And it would need to come back for a vote before it became a ballot
Well, which is what I was
issue.
going to say.
Yeah.
That would be a different ask for them to come back and have us put it on the ballot. And the process that they have to go through to become another entity is going to be another process also. So that's really not the process that we're working on, I don't think, Bill. I think what we're working towards now is support of coming up with a solution. So I think those other things, which will probably garner a lot of enthusiasm, that's going to be a whole different different item that we're going to have to deal with. But right now, we're going to try to help out the best we can, as my motion stated. So,
Supervisor Hemmingson, I just want to clarify that your motion doesn't involve the tax component discussion.
No, that request, to my knowledge, has not been made yet to be put on the ballot. If that comes to that, that would be a different ask.
And we'd make sure it's very clear in the agenda on that as well. But I would agree with Supervisor Hemmingson. The way I took his motion was not to create a JP at this particular moment in time or support a tax at this point.
Use our lobbyists if you need them.
Yeah.
Use our staff if
That's
they've got time to help.
Yeah, that's a future item to
And
come up.
put it on a priority.
Yeah.
That's what we got going.
Okay, Tony, could you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor McClure? Yes. Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes, thank you for coming today. Okay, we're going to go on to the last, we're down to just a couple items on the agenda. Item 19, direct staff to prepare the International Pacific Halibut Commission in support of resolution as prepared by the North Coast Local Agency Coordinating Committee as requested by Supervisor McClure. Item 19 in the agenda.
Yes, what this is that the Pacific Halibut Federation is attempting, they're discussing at this point, to put a limit on the catch, yet there hasn't really been any analysis of what the catch is. And so the Humboldt County Harbor District and other entities that are included in the support data are asking that the International Pacific Halibut Commission actually prepare and do an analysis of what the fishing, what the capabilities are and what the take could be, rather than kind of guessing. So that's why we're asking for this support.
Supervisor Henderson.
Well, I've gone through the resolution, and there's some needless and erroneous trawl bashing that goes on right off the bat, which I don't think is necessary. There's some erroneous information in there. You know, the Pacific halibut average has never reached 400,000 pounds to my knowledge, and the information that I've gotten from my sources, and it's certainly never reached 1 million pounds. This Area 2A is, from what I'm seeing, is not anything new, although it sounds like they're trying to break it up. Now, I've got nothing wrong with using new data, but they've put a number out there, and if I remember right, it's 22,000 pounds. So if you're wanting more than the 11,000 pounds that are being asked for, that allocation has to come from someplace on the West Coast. So that means that it would have to either come from Washington or Oregon. There's going to be a geographic shift in where the fish comes from. So, you know, where are you going to come up with that fish? I don't find that there's a real plan. I have no problem with collecting data and then coming up with a plan.
I
But
think that's what it's trying to call for. And maybe
but
it
they're
needs
putting
to
a
be
lot of,
reworked.
that's
I don't
my
have a
point.
dog in this fight. I only passed it forward
Right.
to Pat Higgins.
And my concern is that if you're talking about a total reallocation, that could affect a lot of fisheries. That could affect the trawl fishery. That could affect the longline fishermen. That, you know, and that can ultimately even affect, depending on the way the studies come out, could affect the recreational fishermen. So I'm a little hesitant, and not that I'm against you know, halibut fishing or recreational fishing. I'm not, but I am a little bit concerned the way this resolution is drawn up.
So who would you suggest that it would go to so it could become, so that all the voices could be heard?
How would you rewrite the resolution?
Well, not even rewrite it. I mean, what table does this need to be tossed around?
Well, I think at least the commercial fishing industry certainly needs to weigh in, not just the recreational side, because now the way the Pacific, well, this is the international halibut, but the Pacific Fisheries Management Council, the way everything works now is it's not just one component. It's not just recreational. It's not just commercial. It's the combination of all. So to take this on one side,
Well, no,
and I don't want to be against recreational fishing, don't get me wrong, but you know, I think there needs to be more information on where is the allocation going to come from, where are they going to do with it.
Should we ask that we ask all the players that are making this request that it possibly be a roundtable discussion with the Pacific Marketing Association and
I would think the
Recreation?
Fishermen's Marketing Association
Would be a first step?
should be a part of that.
I just think that we need to assist them in getting the dialogue so that,
Certainly not against data collection and using real science. The fish have migrated. They've moved much farther south, even though the council doesn't like to hear those kind of things.
Right.
They're below Monterey now. So, I mean, there's, you know, and you know, halibut is a very tasty product.
so I guess then what I'm hearing, and that I think we could probably do by consensus, is return the request to all of the folks that have signed on to the resolution, and ask that they refer this resolution for roundtable discussion with Pacific Manager, is it?
Well, Pacific Fisheries Marketing Association
As the
has
first step.
interests. Yeah, and then there's other.
I'm just trying to get it to,
Yeah.
so the discussion can go forward.
Right. I'd like to see, you know, I'd like to see it written, you know,
Jointly.
a little differently.
So do you have a motion?
No.
I think we can just do consensus that we reply back, that
Yeah.
we would request that this resolution and roundtable discussion go back
It needs to
and
be
make
vetted.
sure that the Pacific Management,
Pacific Fisheries Management.
the Pacific
Marketing.
Fisheries Marketing
Association.
Association be at the table.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
clear?
Yeah.
Does that work?
That works for me.
Yeah, that'll work, and again, the association's input on here is not indicated here, so I'd like to hear what the
Yeah.
private fishermen have to say and so on.
Okay.
Let's send it back.
That's the consensus of
Perfect.
the board. We are on item 20. Accept and file risk management investigation report. accept and file the Department of Health and Human Services Risk Assessment Investigation Report as requested by County Administrative Officer. Jay.
The board directed risk management, which is under administration, to report on the investigation based on the allegation that came through Supervisor Gitlin regarding an incident at Health and Human Services that was described as somebody jumping the counter and assaulting one of our employees. I had directed Joey Young, who is part of personnel risk management, to do some interviews and start investigating the allegation. And going through that process, we interviewed staff at the counter, we interviewed management staff. I've met with the city police chief. I've also asked the police chief, and he was very kind as to give me a stack of incident reports that relate specific to 880 North Crest. And from those findings, we cannot ascertain that any incident ever occurred that was an assault on any of our employees, that somebody had jumped the counter. That did not appear to have been correct. There have been incidents over there in which the police have been called. Since 2007, there were 53 incidents, and most of those were disturbances primarily related to drinking, but there were a few others, vandalism on our cars, things like that. So as we went through that process, this is not typical that we would be dealing with these issues through a public forum, but when they're reported out in a public forum, the board had asked me to come back and also report. In general terms, the issue seems to be unfounded, and in dealing with some of the issues that were brought forward, just to reiterate to the Board of Supervisors, whenever there is an issue, alleged or otherwise, regarding an incident where one of our employees may be affected through an assault, battery, any other type of violence in the workplace, we take it very seriously, and we have mandates to act upon that. And I'm involved in another one at this point that's one of the employees of administration, and I'm doing the investigation on that. I'm also trying to deal with it. The idea is to prevent it from happening in the future. In general terms, in this one, the issues that surround 880 North Crest are usually client-related, and the city police are excellent at coming to the needs of staff, also the sheriff's office. They have mutual aid agreements, but at this point, the specific allegation is not founded.
So in other words, the incident didn't happen?
Exactly.
Okay. Any board comments? Okay. Well, I appreciate the work you've done. Unfortunately, I think it chewed up quite a bit of valuable staff time, although we do need to respond to allegations that are put out there. I would caution and encourage board members to follow the internal process to find out and actually validate when these situations occur. So for the audience members, the incident didn't happen, and at this point, we're going to move on. I appreciate your work on that.
Chairman,
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, if in fact there is any type of incident, alleged or otherwise, there are numerous reporting requirements or allowances. Any officer of the county, which is outlined inside the government code, any supervisor may be approached by an employee, by the public or otherwise, and that will then be reiterated on to risk management, and we will either do an internal investigation or we will do a third-party investigation. These are not new. Whenever you have a large organization, things do come up, and we do have a process. And as such, the reason I'm mentioning this now is for all of our employees. We do an extensive amount of training, mandatory trainings in regards to violence in the workplace, and they need to know that these avenues are open to them, and that we encourage them to go forward and bring forward any type of issues that come up, so that we can address those. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we take these very seriously, and that's why we put the time into these.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, going on to item 21. legislative and budget issues, consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte, authorize the chair to sign and send appropriate letters with respect to matters pending before the state or federal governments.
You received the HR 1516 and then the previous item that needed to be addressed immediately. Regarding the budget, Tony will be preparing a public hearing notice for the final budget hearings to begin on September 10th and ending on September 24th. The process itself is going to be a little bit different this year. We will present the changed final recommended budget on the 10th. Typically, you have a recommended budget, which is a spending plan at this point, that was approved on June 30th. There will be changes to that plan, obviously. It was not balanced at that time. Those changes will be made available. Any other staffing changes or proposals brought forward will be able to be reviewed starting on the 10th. The board can make decisions of whether or not they want to have additional hearings during that 10 days to discuss any of the items, which we can certainly set up. But under the government code, our obligation is to start the hearing 14 days in advance of the final decision of the final budget. And we anticipate that happening, and we anticipate having that final budget to you on the 10th to review and final on the 24th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point, we are going to close the meeting, and then we're going to go back into closed session, and we'll potentially be reporting on a closed session. So we're going to take a 5-minute break in between.